Are you absolutely sure your greenhouse is ready for winter? A lot of gardeners believe December is a time for rest, assuming the structure can just sit under the snow until spring. But this misconception is often the number one mistake, leading to diseases, pests, and in the worst-case scenario, a completely collapsed frame by spring. We are setting the record straight today. I'm going to show you 20 essential December tasks that will turn your greenhouse from a risk zone into a fortress for next year's harvest. Stick around until the very end, and I promise you'll learn at least 5 things you never thought about, including one trick that can double your soil's fertility for the new season. Do you agree that December is for resting, or is it still time for work? Let me know in the comments below, and let's get started. Before we dive into the specific actions, let's understand why December is so critical. This month isn't about active growth, it's about laying the foundation. Imagine your greenhouse is a ship setting sail on a long, harsh winter voyage. Whether it reaches the spring harbour intact depends entirely on how you prepare it while it's in port. In December, we aren't just tidying up, we are waging a preventive war against future problems. We fight fungal spores that are simply waiting for warmth to launch an attack. We eliminate pest larvae that have settled in for the winter. And we reinforce the construction to withstand tons of heavy snow. Essentially, every hour you spend in your greenhouse in December saves you weeks of fighting and a lot of money in the spring. It is a vital investment in both peace of mind and an abundant harvest. So, let's begin with the absolute fundamentals. The frame of your greenhouse. It might look sturdy and reliable, but winter puts it through a serious test. The first order of business is a full structural audit. Carefully inspect every joint and connection point. If you have a metal frame, search for any signs of rust. Even a small speck of corrosion can quickly turn into a major problem when exposed to moisture and freezing temperatures. Clean the area thoroughly with a wire brush, treat it with a rust converter, and then cover it with protective paint. For wooden frames, rot is the main enemy. Tap on all the timber elements, checking for any darkened or softened areas. It's best to either replace any suspect parts entirely or treat them thoroughly with an appropriate wood preservative. Tighten all the bolts and screws, as temperature fluctuations can cause them to loosen over time. This simple action will significantly improve the overall structural integrity. Remember, under the sheer weight of wet snow, even the strongest frame can collapse like a house of cards. Now, let's turn our attention to something a lot of people overlook: temporary bracing. Don't rely on guesswork or the strength claims made by the manufacturer. Heavy, wet snow and freezing rain create immense pressure. December, before the ground is completely frozen solid, is the ideal time to install these crucial extra supports. This is particularly important for arched greenhouses, where heavy snow tends to build up along the peak. The simplest solution is T-shaped supports constructed from sturdy planks or lumber. Place them directly beneath the ridge beam and under every hoop or bow, focusing primarily on the centre spans. Crucially, make sure the support stands on a firm foundation, like a sturdy board or a brick, to prevent it from sinking into the soft soil under the immense weight. If you have a long greenhouse, do not skimp on the number of props. Install them strategically, spacing them every 5 to 6 feet. This easy step is your primary insurance against a total structural collapse. Imagine arriving at your garden in the spring, only to be greeted by ruins. It is far better to spend 1 hour installing supports now than to spend weeks rebuilding later. Light is life, and that holds true even for an empty greenhouse. Our third task, therefore, is to restore the covering to its pristine cleanliness. Over the summer and fall, dust, grime, and bird droppings accumulate on the polycarbonate or film. Inside, you'll often find a green film caused by algae. All of this drastically reduces light transmission. In winter, when every ray of sunshine is precious, maximizing light is crucial for warming the soil and controlling pathogens. To begin, grab warm water, a soft sponge or brush, and some mild household soap or detergent. But remember, absolutely no abrasive cleaners or stiff bristled brushes. These can leave micro scratches on the polycarbonate, which will not only impair transparency, but also create spots where dirt will collect later. Thoroughly wash the greenhouse both inside and out. Pay special attention to joints and corners where grime loves to accumulate. Once washing is complete, rinse everything thoroughly with clean water. You'll be surprised how much brighter and more spacious the interior feels. This procedure not only maximizes light, but it is also the critical first step toward total disinfection. Let's talk about snow for a minute. Most gardeners or dasher owners react instinctively when they see a heavy layer of snow building up on the greenhouse roof. They immediately rush to clear it off. That's the right move, especially if the snow is wet and heavy. But here's the crucial question. What do you do with the cleared snow? Most people just toss it far away from the structure. And that, believe it or not, is a huge mistake. Snow is actually your greatest free resource for nourishing and hydrating your soil. So once the roof is cleared, we do the exact opposite of what feels intuitive. We gather up that clean, fluffy snow and bring it right into the greenhouse. Pile it high on the garden beds in a thick layer. What benefits does this offer? Firstly, the snow acts as an insulator, preventing the soil from freezing too deeply. This keeps the ground looser and helps preserve the crucial beneficial microflora living within. Secondly, when spring arrives, the snow will slowly melt, saturating the soil with pure meltwater. This is the most beneficial, naturally structured moisture you can give your plants. It completely eliminates the backbreaking job of hauling buckets for your first round of spring watering. Aim for a layer at least 30 to 40 centimetres thick, a foot or 16 inches. Honestly, the more you put down, the better. This simple gardening hack is a game changer. It will dramatically improve your soil structure and moisture levels well ahead of the new growing season. Now that we've taken care of the framework and covering, it's time to turn our attention to the ground. December is actually an excellent time for initial soil preparation, especially if you skipped it in the fall. You don't need to break up the clumps or worry about making perfectly smooth beds. Our goal is simply to dig the soil one spade deep, turning over the large sections but leaving the heavy clods intact. Why do this? It brings all the overwintering pests, larvae, pupae, and disease pathogens from the topsoil layer up to the surface. The frost will do all the dirty work for you. It will simply eradicate them. Furthermore, this kind of rough digging dramatically improves soil structure. It allows the soil to absorb oxygen, and the freezing and thawing cycles acting on these large clods will leave the dirt much looser and more crumbly by spring. If you are dealing with heavy clay soil, this technique is absolutely essential. Don't try to achieve a smooth finish. In fact, the rougher the surface and the larger the clods, the more effective the freezing process will be. It is hard work, but you will reap the rewards come spring when you are met with healthy, light, and workable soil. The crusade for cleanliness continues. Once you've washed down the structure with a soapy solution, it's time for total disinfection. Pathogenic fungi and bacteria love to overwinter in the frame's crevices, the polycarbonate joints, and every secluded corner. Our primary goal is simple: eliminate them completely. There are many ways to approach this. You could use a solution of copper or iron sulfate, but these chemicals are often too aggressive. A more gentle and eco-friendly approach involves treatment with specialized bioagents, such as those based on Bacillus subtilis or Trichoderma. However, when temperatures drop below freezing, especially in December, these treatments may be ineffective. This is why the old tried-and-true method, using a sulfur candle, remains one of the most effective solutions. It is crucial to follow safety precautions. Make sure all doors and vents are sealed tight. Also, remove any metallic items you don't want ruined by corrosion. Light the candle, exit quickly, and seal the door immediately behind you. The resulting smoke will penetrate every crack and crevice, destroying the vast majority of pathogens. After the treatment is complete, you will need to thoroughly ventilate the greenhouse for several days. Now let's come back down to earth and focus on what's happening right under our feet. Even after thorough digging and freezing, the soil can still harbour the toughest pathogens, especially those responsible for late blight and various types of rot. This makes soil sterilisation an absolutely essential step in our winter preparations. So, How do we tackle this in December? While chemical fungicides are an option, it's often better to rely on biological methods. If the temperature in your greenhouse is still holding around the freezing point, you can treat the beds with a solution based on trichoderma. This beneficial fungus is a true predator. It actively suppresses and eliminates pathogenic microflora. Another fantastic option is to incorporate mustard seed meal into the soil. Not only does it serve as an excellent organic fertilizer, but it also boasts powerful biopesticidal properties. It helps deter pests like wireworms and nematodes and significantly suppresses the development of fungal diseases. Simply scatter the meal evenly over the beds and lightly work it in with a rake. In the spring, the melting snow will carry these beneficial compounds deep into the soil where they can begin their work. In the fall, many gardeners sow cover crops like mustard, phacelia, or oats in their greenhouse beds. This is absolutely the right move. But what should you do with all that greenery once December rolls around? Leaving the crops standing isn't the best idea. Those tall stalks can trap too much snow, creating uneven weight distribution and potentially damaging your plants or even the greenhouse structure. The best approach is to simply mow down or cut the matured cover crops using a sharp hoe or scythe. Crucially, do not remove this green material from the greenhouse. Leave it lying right there on the beds to act as mulch. Throughout the winter, this biomass will partially break down beneath the snow, protecting the soil from deep frost and erosion. Come spring, it turns into fantastic organic fertilizer, packed with nitrogen and essential micronutrients. All you'll have to do is lightly work the remnants into the top layer of the soil. This single action solves 3 problems at once. You fertilize the ground, improve its structure, and protect it throughout the cold months. Now, if you miss sowing cover crops in the fall, don't worry. It's not too late to scatter some seeds, even in December, provided the ground hasn't frozen solid yet. Simply scatter seeds like winter rye or vetch, and lightly rake them into the soil. Winter is the ideal season for incorporating slow-release organic matter into your garden. Specifically, this means fresh, raw manure or compost that hasn't fully broken down yet. Applying this material in the spring, right before planting, is risky. It can easily scorch or damage the roots of young seedlings. But applying it now, in December, is absolutely perfect. Simply spread the organic matter evenly across the beds, directly over any mowed down cover crops you may have used. The key here? Do not till it or dig it in deeply. Just leave it sitting right on the surface. Throughout the winter, the cycles of freezing, thawing, moisture and snow cover will naturally ferment the manure and break it down. It loses its initial chemical potency, and all the essential nutrients are converted into a form that plants can easily absorb by spring. Come spring, all you'll need to do is lightly aerate the top layer of soil. This technique is especially vital for depleted greenhouse soil, which tends to give up a massive amount of nutrients during the growing season. By doing this now, you are guaranteeing your future tomatoes and cucumbers a powerful reserve of nutrition to last them the entire following year. Condensation is the silent enemy of your winter greenhouse. It forms due to the stark temperature difference between the interior and the exterior. Even weak winter sunlight heats the air significantly during the day, but at night the temperature plummets rapidly. The moisture then condenses on the interior surface of the cladding, dripping down onto the frame and the ground. Why is this dangerous? First, this constant dampness creates an ideal environment for mold and fungi to thrive, particularly on wooden structures. Secondly, the continuous dripping from the roof can lead to localized overwatering, causing the soil to become waterlogged and compacted. Third, when water freezes in cracks and joints, it expands, potentially damaging both the cladding material and the sealants. So how do we combat this? The main strategy is ventilation. You should not keep your greenhouse sealed up all winter long. Regularly open your doors and vents for a couple of hours, ideally once a week, during warmer spells or thaws. This simple action helps equalize the humidity and temperature, dries out the structure, and prevents the formation of excessive condensation. Many people believe that since nothing is growing in the greenhouse during winter, there is no need for ventilation. This is fundamentally mistaken. Stagnant, moist air creates the perfect breeding ground for pathogens to thrive. Ventilating your greenhouse in December solves several crucial problems simultaneously. Firstly, as we mentioned, it tackles condensation. Secondly, it ensures the soil gets a deep freeze. When cold, dry air enters, it helps the ground freeze deeper, which is lethal to overwintering pest and disease agents. Thirdly, it prevents the buildup of various gases that can be released during organic decomposition. It's enough to create a strong cross breeze for just 1 or 2 hours on a calm, frosty day. Open the doors on both ends and any existing vents. Don't be afraid to let the cold air in. On the contrary, your objective is to bring the internal temperature as close to the outdoor temperature as possible. This creates a hostile environment for unwanted organisms and sanitizes the microclimate. Regular ventilation is the key to maintaining a healthy greenhouse. December is firmly the off-season, making it the ideal time to take stock of and perform maintenance on your gardening gear. Let's face it, the last thing you want in the spring, when time is precious, is to discover your shovel handle is snapped or your pruners are completely seized up with rust. So now, while you have the luxury of time, gather up every single tool you used in the garden or greenhouse: shovels, rakes, hoes, pruners, watering cans and buckets. Give them a thorough cleaning to remove all soil and plant debris, wash the metal components, ensure they are completely dry, and then coat them with machine oil or a good quality lubricating grease to ward off rust. Check and sharpen the blades of your pruners and any knives you use. Inspect all wooden handles for cracks or splinters. If you find any damage, replace the handles now rather than waiting. Repair any leaky watering cans or buckets. Finally, collect, organize, and neatly store all your stakes, ties, netting, and hoops in a single location. This process will not only extend the lifespan of your valuable tools, but it will also save you an immense amount of time and hassle come springtime, allowing you to hit the ground running without having to deal with last-minute repairs. With the blizzard raging outside and the greenhouse lying dormant in the frosty calm, now is the perfect time for the intellectual work of planning the upcoming season. Avoid trying to do this haphazardly once spring arrives. Take a sheet of paper or open a file on your computer and sketch out a plan of your greenhouse. Divide the space into beds. Now for the crucial part, recall exactly what you grew where last year. The golden rule of crop rotation states that you should never plant the same crop, or its close relatives, in the exact same spot for several consecutive years. Doing this leads to the buildup of specific diseases and pests in the soil, as well as the uneven depletion of nutrients. For instance, after tomatoes, you should avoid planting peppers, eggplants, and potatoes. Think carefully about which crops you will rotate. Plan for companion planting or intercropping. For example, utilize the space in your tomato beds by interplanting quick crops like radishes or lettuce. Calculate exactly how many transplants or seedlings you'll require. Create a detailed shopping list of seeds you need to purchase. This kind of advanced planning will help you avoid chaos and costly mistakes in the spring, ensuring you use your greenhouse space with maximum efficiency. The topic of watering your greenhouse in December might seem a little odd. Why bother watering empty, frozen soil? In most cases, the answer is you don't. The snow we carefully piled onto the beds will provide the soil with perfect moisture come spring. But there are some exceptions to this rule. For instance, if you are overwintering potted perennials inside, like roses or hydrangeas that you tucked away for the cold months, or maybe you left hardy herbs like parsley or sorrel directly in the beds. If this is the case, then during strong winter thaws, when the ground momentarily melts, it's wise to check the moisture level. If the soil is completely dry, a very light watering with warm water can be beneficial. Crucially, do not overwater. Excess moisture followed by severe freezing can cause serious root damage or rupture. The watering must be very moderate, just enough to prevent the root system from completely drying out. For absolutely empty garden beds, watering in December is simply unnecessary. At this stage, moisture is more foe than friend, as it encourages the development of mold and disease. Greenhouse heating during the winter is a massive topic that needs its own dedicated discussion, But in December, it's smart to start thinking about emergency or minimal heating setups, even if you don't plan on actively growing anything. Why bother? Well, sometimes you need warmth just to get some basic work done. For instance, applying liquid treatments that require temperatures above freezing. Or maybe you'll decide in February to start forcing onions or sowing some early greens. Having a ready-to-go solution is incredibly convenient. The simplest setup? That would be a small electric space heater or an infrared unit. Check their functionality and get those extension cords ready. Also, ensure your existing greenhouse wiring is completely sound and can handle the electrical load. A more advanced option is a proper soil warming system using specialised heating cable. December, while your raised beds are empty, is the perfect time for installation. Even if you don't run this setup constantly, the ability to quickly preheat your soil in spring for early starts is a massive advantage that significantly accelerates your first harvest. Who says a greenhouse has to sit completely empty just because it's December? If you can manage to keep the temperature just slightly above freezing, you can transform it into a productive little winter garden. So what exactly can you plant in December? Your best bet is focusing on forcing various types of greens. Sow some onion sets in containers or directly into the beds, and in just a few weeks, you'll be harvesting fresh green onion tops. You can achieve the same results by forcing root vegetables like parsley, celery, or beets specifically for their leaves. In addition, you can sow the quickest, most cold-tolerant crops such as garden cress, leaf mustard, and spinach. These greens don't require much light or warmth, and they can produce a crop even in the bare-bones conditions of a winter greenhouse. Certainly the yield won't be as massive as during summer, but there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of harvesting your own fresh vitamins just in time for the holiday table. It just goes to show that the greenhouse season truly can last all year long. If you aren't planning on growing anything in December, your greenhouse can serve another crucial purpose. It makes the perfect storage facility. Think of it as a ready-made root cellar, just above ground. This is where you can keep root crops that need cool temperatures, but can't handle a deep freeze like carrots, beets, or radishes. How do you set this up? Start with large boxes or barrels. Line the bottom with a layer of dry sand or sawdust. Layer your root vegetables so that they don't touch each other, separating each layer with more sand. This technique prevents drying out and stops potential rot from spreading. The greenhouse is also a great place to overwinter. Things like gladiolus bulbs or dahlia tubers that you've dug up for the cold season. The main thing is ensuring they stay dry and are protected from direct deep freezes. You might want to cover the storage boxes with old blankets or frost cloth for extra insulation. This way, your greenhouse remains useful even during its downtime, helping you preserve your entire harvest right through to spring. In winter, when food is scarce in nature, your greenhouse can look extremely attractive to unwelcome guests like mice and other rodents. They are drawn not only by the potential warmth, but also by plant debris, stray seeds, or simply the promise of shelter from predators. The damage they inflict can be substantial. They might chew through wooden framing, damage plastic sheeting or covering materials, ruin stored crops, and dig up garden beds. That is why taking protective measures in December is absolutely crucial. First, remove all potential food sources from the greenhouse. Don't leave seed packets lying around, and clear out any leftover vegetables or crop residue. Second, seal off any potential gaps or holes rodents could use to sneak inside. For this, use a fine metal mesh or expanding foam, which you can mix with broken glass for added deterrent. Third, set up baits or traps. You can use commercially available poisonous baits or try traditional remedies, such as placing elderberry branches or rags soaked in birch tar. Rodents absolutely detest these strong smells. Even during the off-season, monitoring your greenhouse microclimate is crucial. Hang a standard outdoor thermometer inside, preferably one that tracks both minimum and maximum temperatures. Make sure to check the readings regularly, at least once a week. Why bother? First, it provides a crucial understanding of your greenhouse's thermal performance. You can accurately gauge how much it chills down overnight and how quickly it heats up on sunny days. This data is incredibly useful in the spring when you start planning your seedling planting schedule. Secondly, drastic temperature fluctuations can be really tough on the structure itself. If a major thaw follows a deep freeze, for instance, it places significant extra load and stress on your building materials. Thirdly, and perhaps most obviously, if you are storing sensitive items or actively overwintering plants, temperature control becomes absolutely vital. Having that thermometer allows you to react immediately. You can turn on emergency heating if temperatures drop critically low, or conversely, vent the space if it gets too hot during a sunny spell. And this brings us to the 20th point on our list. With all the major preparatory work completed, it's time for one last inspection, a final walkthrough, to effectively winterize the greenhouse until the next season. Take one last lap and verify everything. Are the structural supports secure? Are all doors and vents tightly sealed? Though you may leave one slightly ajar for minimal ventilation if needed, is all the trash and debris cleared out? Have you strategically placed rodent traps? Ensure there are no loose items lying near the structure that high winds could pick up and potentially damage the covering. Look inside. Is everything secured and in its proper place? Are there any signs of leaks or moisture damage? This is the finishing touch, providing the peace of mind that you've done everything necessary for a successful overwintering. You can now close the door with confidence and go enjoy a hot cup of tea, perhaps already planning next year's record-breaking yields. Remember, you didn't just tidy up, you laid a solid foundation for success throughout the entire coming year. Your greenhouse is now fully prepared to withstand anything winter throws its way. So step by step, we've successfully completed the 20 most important December tasks. As you can see, for a serious gardener, winter isn't a time for hibernation. It's a period of strategic preparation. The most eye-opening moments, of course, were the strategies of bringing snow inside the structure instead of clearing it away, and the option to utilize your greenhouse as a makeshift root cellar. These seemingly simple tricks fundamentally transform your winter maintenance approach. By following this plan, you're not just protecting your structure, you are creating the ideal conditions for an explosive start next spring: healthy, fertile soil, the absence of pests and diseases, and an entirely undamaged construction. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I truly hope these tips were useful. If they were, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming secrets for maximizing your yield. And now, a question for you. Which December greenhouse tasks do you consider the most crucial, and which ones do you feel are perhaps unnecessary? Share your own experience in the comments below. Let's discuss.